Good morning, everybody. We're here to talk about how to make our fabulous Stonehenge block for the Northcott International Stonehenge Block Contest. Okay, this is our block, which, as you can see, I think it looks like a sun, which I thought kind of keyed into the whole Stonehenge, sort of thing very, very well. So anyway, when you get your block, this is your block. These are your fabrics. Okay, this is your kit. It's $12.99. You're going to get all your fabrics. It's a 12.5-inch block. And you're going to get 3 pieces of paper. And the top one here, this one here, is all of your spikes. Okay, this is your sun rays. And we're going to show you how you make those today. And the B is for background and the S is for sun. I did ask what those meant this morning. Background and sun. Leave it at that.
I should add that also, we didn't put them here, you're going to get a set of instructions.
Yes,
Like
you
on how
will.
to-
Yes, you will get written instructions. Okay, so that's that. And you're going to trace this out onto foundation paper. Okay? And you'll need 4 of them because it's made in quarters.
And you can trace this onto the foundation paper or the freezer paper, whichever you choose. They both have the good points, so this one's much easier to get off.
To tear the paper
To
off
take a
after
pair-
you finish
yes.
sewing.
Yeah,
Okay.
You need a pair of tweezers to get this out of your points, but this one just comes right
Okay,
out
so we'll be
and so-
doing foundation paper, being that it's a lot easier. This piece here, if Betty wants to just hold the block up, I'll show you where this is. These pieces are for these outer parts of the block, okay? And again, you need 4 of them. And one of these is for the paper and one is for the fabric. You
And it-
have to pay attention to that,
And-
okay?
but
Because
it's
they're
written
different.
right on the piece. It says, this piece is for the paper.
Okay, so we've been very, very clear on that.
And I would use the freezer paper for this. This freezer paper is just the stuff that you buy in the grocery store for wrapping the mousse.
Oh, okay.
And it sticks better and you don't need to tear it out.
So the shiny side of the freezer paper is what, like you'll draw on the matte side of the paper.
Yes.
And then you will press it shiny side
Down to the back of the
to the
fabric.
fabric. Okay, and then cut around it. And it
Yeah.
can be reused all the time. You don't have to cut 4 of them. You can cut once.
Yes.
And then just lift it off and cut it again.
But at least it sticks, so it makes
Yeah.
life easy.
Now this piece is also for fabric and for freezer paper, okay? So you have to pay attention to that. We've written it right on there. And it is for the center of the block, the circle. Okay, and in your kit, we've given you enough fabric that you have enough room to play around to figure out what you want to put
So you can
in the
center
center.
your circle over
Exactly.
the top of one of those
One of those,
motifs.
you can pick
Yeah.
out whichever motif you like and see which one that you'd like to cut around it. Okay? So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna show you how this is done. So we've traced onto the foundation paper. All of your little spiky pieces, okay, all your sun rays are cut at, they're 3 by 4?
They're 3 by 4.
3 inches by 4 inches, every single one of them. So you don't have to do any fancy dancy cutting, just 3 inches by 4 inches. Okay, and Betty's gonna go ahead and show us
Nick.
how that you do this.
If you've never done this, you need to keep your mind straight on what's background and what is sun. And we're gonna start at one end and we're gonna work to the other. So this
Okay.
little guy out here, he's the background. So take one of these squares of background and put him, let's see, which is the front? This is going to be the front. Put him so that he's looking out the front of the block. You don't want him upside down,
So the printed side of the paper is facing you,
like that.
okay? Now how do you get it to stay there? Do you pin
I
it,
ju-
Betty, or do you
You
glue
could,
it, or
but
what
this
do you
is
do?
so small I can just hold it.
Okay,
If it was big, I'd pin it, and if it was really big, I'd use the freezer paper and it would stick there.
okay,
So the next thing I'm going to do, oh, we forgot the little piece of plastic,
okay.
cardboard or whatever, is I'm going to crease this
I'm gonna
first
grab a
sewing
piece of
line
that for you.
so that it folds back like this.
Here, we can use a piece of
Oh,
the
that'd be-
template plastic.
that'd be
Piece of
perfect.
template plastic works perfect for this.
So then you've got, this is where you started. Here's the line we're going to sew on. We're going to fold on that line. And then we're going to lay it on the cutting board and we're going to cut this off with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And we don't really care if it's a quarter, but try and get close to a quarter. If your ruler slips or whatever, the world is not going to end. Then you put it back where it came from, like this. Then you take your next piece, which is the sun, and you line that up so that your right side's together. These pieces are big enough that if you just sort of center it, it'll be fine. So put these two edges together. If you find that this slips, you can always hold it up to the light and get it back where it belongs. So I'm going to sew down this line, and these two are right sides together on the back.
So this is the right side that you're gonna see.
And I'm sewing on the back.
You're sewing on the wrong side, which is where the printed lines are.
And I'm going to use I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. I've put the stitch length down a little bit. It's down to 2. Because you're going to be ripping your paper off eventually, and it would be nice to have your stitches close enough together. So now this is just going to open up like that. So this is your background, and this is your sun, and you're going to take the iron and just press that over. Pretend I pressed it over.
Okay.
Now you turn it over to the other side, and this is the line we just sewed on, so now we're going to do this line. So I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to fold right back on the next line. I could have used this piece of plastic at home. I was using a little piece of cardboard off some package of something or other. That's quite nice. Now, this is my 1/4 of an inch seam. Oops. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take the next piece, which is the background.
It'll be a blue.
If I can find a blue in here.
There's a blue.
I'm going to put it right sides together with this one so that this lines up down here. I'm going to sew it, holding all this where it belongs from this side.
Could you pin it to hold it if you weren't sure?
Oh, for sure. I
Okay.
would say, though, that you need to use tiny little pins. Use those little silk pins.
Oh, the very fine
Yeah, because
silk
I
pins
found
by
the
Clover. Yeah, those work really well.
great big clunky pins just distort things. And that's the advantage to the freezer paper. If this was freezer paper, I'd put this over here and I'd iron it and it would stay there. But I'd have to pay for that by having to tweezer the paper out later.
Yeah, fair enough.
So then you end up with this. And you just carry this on as you go, right off to the end. So when you get to the end, and you've got this big mess of stuff going on, you cut this off right on the edge of the paper. And then,
And you should have a 1/4 of an inch between
Yes.
where the intersection is here to the very edge of the pattern. Is that correct?
that's right. And
Okay.
and because it's on here, you do.
Yep.
That's the wonderful thing about paper piecing. If it's drawn on there, you're gonna get it. So then you just put this under the sewing machine and do a 1/4 inch, top and bottom.
A 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch?
I just did a 1/4.
Okay.
Well,
Fair enough.
you want to go through these intersections.
Through that intersection,
so
yeah.
Just make sure you're going through those.
Okay.
And do it on the bottom too. And then you make 4 of these. And you'll end up with 4 of these.
Okay.
And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the outside edge on this 1/4. So we're going to have a 1/4 of
1/4
the
of
whole
this,
block
of the circle.
practically
Yeah.
made. And when you are cutting out your pieces for your corner, you have 2 pieces, one for the fabric and one for the paper, and that's because you want to iron the freezer paper one onto the back of the corner, and you want 1/4 of an inch of it sticking out down here. And then you're going to fold it over the freezer paper like this.
So the sticky side of the shiny side of the freezer paper has gone to the wrong side of the fabric.
That's right.
Okay,
And there was 1/4 of an inch that didn't have any freezer paper on it, and we folded that up over the freezer paper.
Okay.
And you can baste that in place if you want, but I took the Easy Press and sprayed it and pressed it, and it just stays there.
yeah.
But if you muck with it too much, it'll fall off, and you might want to baste it in place. I wouldn't suggest pins at this point because they'd just be annoying. So you have this, and it fits magically on here. And it'll just put this one on here, pin it in place, so that this edge is actually matching at the points.
And you're working with 1/4 of the pattern at a time. You don't do all, you don't assemble all 4 of these arches into a circle and then start trying to put these on.
I did them in quarters. I just thought it was
Okay.
a lot easier.
Yeah, okay.
And after I pinned this in place, I actually hand basted it so that when I was working with it, I didn't have to have the pins in it.
Okay, good idea.
And when you get all 4 of these done, you need to sew them together down the edges so that you end up with this whole circle that has nothing in the middle. Whoops, can you?
Yeah.
I pressed these seams open so that they wouldn't be bulky. And you need to pay very close attention to making sure that this is matched. I should tell you at this point that this piece is bigger than this piece because I gave you extra up here because it's hard to match this, and these weren't going to come out exactly perfect, at least mine didn't.
Oh, I see.
So this block is actually too big, and when you're done, you're going to trim it off to 12.5. So you
When
can-
you're done the entire block, like after you've sewn the centerpiece in as well.
Yeah, when
Okay,
you're at the very end, when you're done, you can trim it off at 12.5, and
Yeah.
instead of having these wobbly edges, it'll be
Yeah.
perfect.
yeah, because you can always trim down, but you can't trim up because there's nothing to trim
Well,
to.
that was the problem I was having. And by the time you've done all this, and if it's cut to size, it's kind of wobbly out there.
Yeah,
These curves are not on the straight of the grain, curves are biased. The
Yeah.
thing just sort of flips out. So you sew them and you press that seam open, and you'll have this 4 pieces with a hole in the middle. And you make your center the same way. It's the freezer paper is attached, is ironed onto the back of the fabric, and it's 1/4 of an inch bigger, and you turn it over.
now Betty, just one question on when you turned this over, did you like clip it so it would fold over better on the curves, or did you just in the process of your basting on here, did that pull in the little bit of extra fabric?
It did. I didn't have to gather it ahead of time, or I didn't have to do anything. It just went. I didn't have to clip it. Nothing. It just went.
Well, you just love it when it's well behaved.
Yeah, I just put the iron on it and flipped it
Yeah.
over. It was
So
very
nice.
well behaved. Well, it's a pretty big circle. It wasn't
Yeah,
a problem.
but it's still well behaved.
Yes, it
Yes,
was.
yes. All right.
And then I hand sewed that in the middle.
And then you took it and you put it down and you squared it off
I
to make
did.
it a 12.5 inch block.
I should tell you how I did that because it was late at night. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I'd already made one block in the corner, and the edges weren't big enough, and I was messing around with it, trying to figure out what to do, and I
Okay.
was afraid to trim it off because I was tired and I was going to mess it up, and I needed it because you wanted it the next day.
So demanding.
I know, she's a slave driver. So this is what I did in the end. I took a piece of freezer paper, and I cut it at 12.5 inches. And I folded it into quarters so that I could see the middle. And I stuck the middle of this
Right smack down in the middle
right
of
in the
the
middle of the
block.
motif, yep.
Yep.
And I ironed it down, and I cut around the edges.
That's, you know
So
what?
that's my...
That's a lot easier
Well,
than...
it was better than trying to trim it
Yeah,
off to 12.5
yeah,
at 10:30
Yeah,
at night.
I did receive a message from her that night saying, yeah, she was a little resistant to the whole, going down that road. So, beautiful job. Beautiful
Thank you.
job. I really like this idea for the trimming off, and I think people are going to find that that's a great way to square your block up. Just make sure that you do fold your freezer paper into the 4 and match it right to the very, very center so that when you trim it, it's perfect. Okay, so that's a great tip, Betty. Thank you so much. Okay,
We
so
could trim lots of blocks that way.
we could, and maybe we'd end up with all of our blocks the same size. That'd be good. So on your contest, when you get your kit, okay, and you can order these online as well as pick them up in the store. Okay, you're gonna get all of the rules and regs for the contest. On the very back page, right down at the bottom, is the web address. It's www.northcott.com. If you go to Northcott's website, click on resources, and that gives you a listing of all of the shops that are participating. You can order your blocks online, so it's a little different than row by row. You don't have to physically go to the shops. You can order the blocks online. So we're getting ladies in here that are ordering blocks from Massachusetts and Texas and California, Montreal, Toronto. It's craziness. So do be aware of that. And your whole thing is you're to make a quilt using 12 of the blocks. They will all be increments of 6. Okay, so they might be 6 by 6, they might be 12 inch, they might be 18 inch, they could be 6 by 12. You make your quilt, you send it in, okay? And you get a chance at winning
You
a
send
great...
in a picture.
You send in a picture, yeah. You don't have to send your actual project. You can send a picture. And you have a chance to win a trip to Stonehenge in England. Yeah, that would be very cool. Or you can win like $1,000 US dollars cash plus more fabric in case your stash is getting low. It's a good contest. So do check it out on their website and give us a call, come on into the shop, or order our kit online, $12.99. Thanks very much, Betty, for all your help.
Right.
Okay, talk to you guys later.